Good morning, everyone. Let's get settled. We're going to go ahead and get started. Let's call this meeting of the TRPA Governing Board to order. It is Wednesday, April 22nd. It is 9:37 a.m. The first item on our agenda is roll call, but before I go to Mario, we do have a new member to call and roll. That's Mr. Vince Guthrow. Vince, welcome to the TRPA. Vince is the new director of DCNR for the state of Nevada, recently appointed by Governor Lombardo. We're so happy to have you here, and I just wanted to open the floor if you wanted to say a couple words, but mostly it's us to you being welcome and thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I know it looks like we have sort of a quick agenda, so I don't want to make it longer. But thank you so much. First off, to the staff for the warm welcome. Julie, thank you so much. And then, yeah, I'm looking forward to my service on the TRPA board. I was appointed by Governor Lombardo effective March 30th, and super honored by the appointment and happy, looking forward to working with everyone on this board. So appreciate the warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to be Vince G and Vince H. So
I don't think it's ever happened that there's been two Vinces on a board. I just want to let you know.
Next to each other in the alphabet. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you again. Mario, with that, could you please call the roll?
Miss Alding? Here. Miss Bennett?
Here.
Mr. Bass?
Here.
Miss Conrad Seda? We'll circle back. She is on the road at the moment. Miss Faustinos? Miss Holloway? Mr. Guthrow?
Here.
Miss Hayes? Miss Hill?
Here.
Mr. Henigman?
Here.
Mr. Keykeeper?
Here.
Miss Lane?
Here.
Miss Loomer?
Here.
Mr. Rice? Mr. Rice, can you hear us?
Here. I can
Ms.
hear you.
Williamson? Okay. Thank you. Miss Williamson?
Here.
And Miss Conrad Seda. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Maria. Next up is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all could please stand and join me.
To the flag of the United States, to the republic which stands one nation.
Thank you all. We're now on to agenda item 3, which is our public comment period for items on this agenda. Any member of the public wishing to address the governing board on any agenda item, including items on the consent calendar, may do so at this time. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. I'd like to start in person. If anyone has public comment, please come up now. And if not, we'll go to online, which is either dialing *9 or pressing the raise hand button in Zoom. Is there anyone in the room wishing to make public comment? Okay, no one is coming forward. Is there anyone online wishing to address the governing board?
Madam Chair, there are no hands raised to comment.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Julie, are there any changes?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We'll deem the agenda approved. Next up is approval of minutes. These are from March 25th and they're on page 27 of your packet. Does anyone have any changes? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the governing board meeting of March 25th, 2026 as presented.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to agenda item 6, which is the TRPA consent calendar. There are 3 items on consent. Consent calendar is 6A, the City of South Lake Tahoe Solar Carport Project, Turnkey Energy, 1352 Johnson Boulevard, City of South Lake Tahoe, California, APN 025-010-021 and 025-010-023. This is TRPA file number ERSP 2025-0847. Information is on page 71 of our packets. Does anyone have any questions on our first consent calendar item? This is 6A. Seeing and hearing none, I'll move on to agenda items, consent calendar item 6B, which is the lowering the Placer County Individual Parcel Evaluation System, or IPES, buildable line. Information is on page 113 of our packets. Anyone have any questions on consent item 6B? Seeing and hearing none, consent item 6C is on page 123 of our packets. This is governing board committee membership appointments. Anybody have any questions on this consent item? All right, seeing and hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Maria, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Aldine,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Bennett,
Yes.
Ms. Conrad Seda, Mr. Guthrow,
Yes.
Ms. Faustinos, Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Holloway,
Yes.
Mr. Keycapper,
Yes.
Mr. Henigman,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Ms. Lane,
Yes.
Ms. Loomer,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Before we move on to the next agenda item, I need a motion to adjourn as the TRPA and reconvene as the Tahoe Metropolitan Planning Organization. Can I please have?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda item 7A is the TMPO consent calendar. There's one item on consent, which was reviewed by Transportation. Ms. Hill, could you please take us through that item?
Yes, absolutely. We had an opportunity to review the final draft of the 26-27 Lake Tahoe Transportation Planning Overall Work Program. This has been reviewed by TTD and we had no comments. Staff did a great job. Excited to implement.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve the TMPO consent calendar.
So moved.
Thank you. Any further discussion? And I believe a roll call. Maria, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Aldine,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Bennett,
Yes.
Ms. Conrad Seda, Mr. Guthrow,
Yes.
Ms. Faustinos, Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Holloway,
Yes.
Mr. Keycapper,
Yes.
Mr. Henigman,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Ms. Lane,
Yes.
Ms. Loomer,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, motion passes.
Thank you. And now we need to adjourn as TMPO and reconvene as TRPA. Can I?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Back at TRPA, we are now on agenda item 8, which is planning matters. 8A is a presentation on the process and design standards for area-wide stormwater complete streets infrastructure. Information on this item can be found on page 137. And Shay Navarro, take it away. Thank you.
I am going to actually do a quick introduction before Shay Navarro takes it away. Good morning, all. Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. I also want to welcome our new board member, Vince Guthrow. Thanks for being here. And also Stephanie Holloway for sitting in for board member Gustafson from Placer County. This one will be right up your alley with infrastructure and public works. Because Stephanie has a great history serving the community in that area for the North Shore. I also want to thank the city's Public Works Director who's in the audience. Well, maybe he just walked out the door. Dr. Q was here, affectionately known as Dr. Q. He ran while the getting was good, but he also has been a good partner in some of the conversations we're going to be having with you today about stormwater and water quality. It's fitting that we start our planning matters item on Earth Day with water quality. It's a scintillating topic of engineering and complete streets, but let me just sort of scale up the conversation because Shay will get into more of the detail. But from a big picture standpoint, you all know we have 10 environmental threshold categories, things like water quality, what we're talking about now, but air quality, scenic, recreation, et cetera. Talked about the transportation VMT standards this morning at the committee. But clarity is what rallies this community. Keep Tahoe blue, keeping Lake Tahoe pristine, and in an environment that is different than other areas in all of you in different parts of the two states. When a new subdivision is built, there are stormwater systems and complete streets that are part of that. We do not do subdivisions in Tahoe. We don't take, 100-acre parcels and turn them into neighborhoods of thousands of homes. That was prohibited, now more than 55 years ago because the first a little fun fact, the first TRPA governing board meeting convened in March of 1970. So Earth Day kind of coincides when your board formulated. And at that point, the fear was runaway development. And so we have this very parcel by parcel focus for Lake Tahoe. We've evolved over the last 55 plus years. And we're looking at a scale that's necessary to solve the challenges that we have for lake clarity. So we're in pursuit of our water clarity target of getting back to close to 100 feet of clarity, which is what it was in the 1960s. And then what happened in 2012 when we did the regional plan update, the board adopted a big update to our TRPA regional plan. We had the benefit of 10 years of science that the two states led, the state of Nevada, the state of California, the US EPA, under what's called the total maximum daily load, the TMDL. That's part of the Clean Water Act nomenclature. And the TMDL science told us that not every drop of runoff is created equal in our basin. And we need to prioritize where the biggest runoff is to get the biggest bang for the buck if we ever want to solve the clarity problems that are plaguing Lake Tahoe. So we embedded in the regional plan update this idea of what we call area-wide treatments, because Tahoe developed in small cabin after small cabin, individual parcel. Over time, we just didn't have that infrastructure. So we're going back and trying to achieve that. And that's truly what we're getting to. And the partnerships with local jurisdictions are essential because we will rely on the municipalities to either build or maintain these systems. And Shay Navarro has been doing an incredible job convening a big partnership around this because it's very much tied to our housing goals as well, because land use, housing, and water quality go hand in hand. So thanks for the tee up opportunity. I'm going to pass it over to Shay Navarro.
Thanks, Julie, and Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Shay Navarro, TRPA's Watershed and Water Quality Program Manager, and I'm going to be starting you off this morning with an informational only item on area-wide stormwater and complete streets infrastructure. No formal action is requested. Really, the intent is just to familiarize you with the work that is being done, particularly in advance of your board retreat next month, where you'll likely see reference to this work in the work program. Next slide. So protecting water quality, as Julie mentioned, has always been central to TRPA's purpose. And to that end, the agency has put forth various policies and regulations, including requiring stormwater BMPs on all developed properties in the Tahoe Basin. And that is to infiltrate runoff and reduce water quality impacts to the lake. Next slide. However, as Julie mentioned, 10 years of science that went into developing Tahoe's total maximum daily load, or the TMDL, identified the need for strategies beyond parcel BMPs to improve lake clarity and meet the TMDL. And area-wide stormwater treatment provides an alternative way to meet TRPA's BMP requirements. It uses a watershed approach and provides flexibility to identify opportunities to treat runoff, stormwater runoff, from both private properties and the public right-of-way collectively versus parcel by parcel. So in this image, what you're seeing on the left side is private properties and the public right-of-way are being treated separately. Parcel BMPs, they only extend to the property boundary, and that often leaves large sections of the public right-of-way unimproved and as potential sources of sediment. The watershed on the right, which is delineated by that purple dashed line, stormwater runoff from private properties and the public right-of-way are being treated together as a system. The right-of-way is where runoff collection facilities like curbs and gutters are used to direct runoff to treatment facilities where pollutants are removed before the cleaner water is either infiltrated into the groundwater or released and flowed into the lake as cleaner surface water. So initially in Tahoe, area-wide treatment was used in locations with special circumstances. That's language from our code identifying locations where properties were not able to meet TRPA's infiltration requirements due to conditions like high groundwater or bedrock. And so alternative BMPs were put in place to treat runoff collectively Examples include the Bijou Erosion Control Project on Tahoe South Shore, which has high groundwater, Cave Rock, which has bedrock, as well as the Tahoe City wetlands up in the North Shore. With the advent of the TMDL, you know, as Julie mentioned, science identified that not all parcels are created equal in terms of the runoff that they produce, depending on the property's land use, as well as the proximity to the lake. So in 2012, the regional plan expanded the application of area-wide treatment to be allowed in any location, not just those with special circumstances, as long as it could be shown to provide greater or equal water quality benefit to parcel BMPs. TRPA also allowed funding mechanisms for properties to pay local jurisdictions fees in lieu of infiltrating runoff on site. And the regional plan EIS showed that area-wide treatment projects that treat private and public runoff collectively facilitate maintenance, as it's more effective for public works to complete maintenance than to follow up with thousands of individual properties trying to make sure that they're maintaining their infiltration BMPs at the parcel level. And most recently, with the phase 2 housing amendments, this is furthering area-wide treatment by allowing additional coverage for affordable, moderate, and achievable housing, provided that they are part of a stormwater collection and treatment system that's operated and maintained by the local jurisdiction. And project proponents really want to know how to comply with these requirements, and this presentation provides an update on the progress made so far to help implement these policies that were approved by the board. Next slide. So we've established a specific process to implement area-wide treatment plans that's consistent with TRPA code. The first step is doing pollutant load reduction modeling to determine if existing treatment on the ground provides us with the adequate amount of treatment to meet that greater or equal water quality benefit. And it is consistent with the TMDL methodology used for lake clarity crediting. So any work that's being done can be dovetailed right into that when local jurisdictions want to get credit for meeting TMDL requirements. If additional treatment is needed, the next step is developing a conceptual plan for additional treatment that can be integrated with other improvements, such as active transportation or parking, wildlife, habitat improvements, SEZ restoration, to provide multiple benefits. After that, we have the implementation level. This is really permit level design, but at the same time, really spelling out the details of how operation and maintenance will happen, any fees that will be collected. As we mentioned, in lieu fees are allowed as part of area-wide treatment, as well as the allowance for any interim treatment to phase in transition between parcel by parcel to area-wide. One of the conditions of the code states that in order to be part of an area-wide treatment, that system has to be up and functioning to participate. So that provides, you know, some flexibility for that transition. Then we have TRPA approval. This can happen at staff level or can go all the way up to the board, depending on the project. If area-wide treatment is part of some kind of housing project, that's likely to come to the board. If it's just looking at, you know, site constraints and special circumstances, that's something that can be approved at the staff level. And then lastly, we collect documentation from the local jurisdictions, attach that in our BMP database, where we track BMP status for all developed properties in the basin. And so that shows who is participating in an area-wide and when that participation happened. We also track when maintenance happens to update certificates with the current date. Next slide. So this is an example of the Ski Run Mountain to Marina area-wide treatment conceptual plan. This urban neighborhood has higher uses and more needs for infrastructure such as sidewalks or street parking, or, you know, needs more space on each individual parcel to support housing, versus a more rural or dispersed neighborhood where parcel BMPs probably work just fine. This plan identifies locations where infiltration is constrained and proposes opportunities to infiltrate higher up in the watershed to provide that same or better water quality benefit to parcel BMP. So really taking that watershed scale approach is apparent here versus parcel by parcel. Lastly, the plan provides opportunity for multiple benefits by integrating stormwater treatment with other benefits such as active transportation facilities, complete street improvements, sediment source control, and SEZ restoration. Next slide. So currently we have 6 active area-wide treatment projects that are functioning in the basin and more in the planning stages, including most recently in Placer County for priority watersheds in the Kings Beach and Dollar Hill neighborhoods. Next slide. So TRPA has allocated general funds to develop engineering details of stormwater and complete streets infrastructure, like the drawing that you see on the left. And this is going to augment the BMP handbook and be used in permitting plan sets for area-wide treatment that are either put together by the local jurisdictions or by project proponents in plans like the ones seen on the right. TRPA engaged Nichols Consulting Engineers as the consultant and convened a working group with stormwater and public works staff from the local governments in the basin to further this effort. And the purpose of this group is really to compile a menu of existing details for stormwater and complete streets infrastructure appropriate for use in the right-of-way, and to identify and prioritize and prepare additional details for the same purposes, with emphasis on infiltration, which is the best way to remove pollutants of concern for the TMDL, as well as Tahoe appropriate designs, really wanting to make sure that we are accounting for our winter climate, thinking about plow-friendly designs, you know, in terms of how the plow moves through the neighborhood, how to remove coarse sediment with traction abrasive application, as well as suitable vegetation for Tahoe's climate. So next slide. In summary, TRPA, we've had allowances for area-wide treatment for some time, with most recently the phase 2 housing amendments, again, offering additional coverage when included as part of a stormwater collection and treatment system that's operated and maintained by the local jurisdiction. And this is really to advance this strategy of area-wide treatment and improve lake clarity. We've established a clear implementation process to meet code requirements, and we have dedicated resources to work on developing a suite of stormwater complete street details to augment the BMP handbook and advance permit level design and promote multiple benefit projects. So now we can turn it over to you for any questions or discussion. Again, this was just an informational only presentation. No formal action is being requested, but we welcome any questions or any feedback from you at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Shay. Turn into the board. Questions or comments? Nope. Online. Vince, Vince H?
Yeah, that is going to be confusing, right? I was just curious, do we have any document that shows us what areas are where we'd like to see these projects implemented, which are in process, and any idea of kind of this total cost? I guess I don't know, we only have, I think you said 6 of these projects that have been implemented so far in the basin, and a couple maybe in the works. How many would we like to see, and what that total build out cost might be? I'm just curious the extent of that.
Thanks, Vince. I can respond to that. When we originally started this, we did a regional analysis trying to look at where area-wide treatment was feasible and desired. That really looked at locations where there was existing infrastructure already in place, as well as locations that had these special circumstances or site constraints. So I definitely think with the advent of the new phase 2 housing allowances and code language, the location of where we want to see area wide will expand. And we've been working directly with each of the local jurisdictions to further that. And, you know, as far as total cost, it really depends on the situation and what type of treatment is being looked at, implemented. You know, the Bijou project in South Lake Tahoe has a very elaborate pump and treat system where water's collected and pumped upstream. So that's going to be significantly more expensive than something where, you know, let's say with respect to the Tahoe City wetlands, private properties treat their runoff and then release it where it can flow by gravity down to the Tahoe City wetlands for additional polishing. The one thing I will say is with our in lieu fee allowance in the code, that really provides a revenue source and mechanism by which the local jurisdictions can capture funding from the private properties, where they can collect fees in lieu of those private properties installing infiltrating infrastructure directly on their parcel. So there is a way to help fund costs for not only, depending on what the situation is, potentially installation, but definitely operation and maintenance, which is always a challenge for local jurisdiction public works staffs to maintain these projects over time.
I do have a follow-up question on that. If you have so Stephanie Holloway for the record. We've been deep in the conversation, and I know our staff is on the working group from our public works team. So thank you for convening that. And I think getting into the details technically. I'll just say as an engineer, I think this is a great idea. And I think seems feasible. But it does come at a cost, pretty significant cost. We've been looking at our systems that we maintain on the North Shore, specifically in the Kings Beach area, which were put in as related to the Kings Beach Commercial Core Improvement Project. You know, that project was sized for the roadway runoff predominantly. And so I think there's, you know, some pressure, I'll just say, on us to kind of, you know, look at the availability of capacity there, which there is limited capacity for private property. And then also, I think kind of getting creative on, you know, the potential for retrofit and or new construction related to that. So I think we're, you know, we're supportive. I'm cautiously supportive because I know how much these types of below ground infrastructure systems cost, especially here in Tahoe. So I appreciate the effort. I do think a lot more conversation around funding is definitely going to need to be part of this conversation as well.
I'm going to let Kim jump in as part of a response, and then Ashley question.
Thank you, Kim Carringer, for the record. I just wanted to respond to Vince H's question because I think it might actually benefit Vince G and newer board members as well, and putting a plug for the environmental improvement program and the tracking we do through that. So Vince, you asked a question earlier in Transportation Committee as well on how are you able to see what projects are prioritized, where are they going to be, what funding do they need, how much progress are we making? We do track a full program of work through the environmental improvement program of just that, of stormwater projects, of forest health projects, that really shows us what's in the hopper, where they're prioritized and what we need. And we track that online through the EIP tracker. And we also have working groups in each of these focus areas. So there is a stormwater, you know, the Stormwater Quality Improvement Committee, SQIC, that we call it affectionately. All of that committee is all different jurisdictions talking about where this makes sense, these types of projects to implement, where, when, and funding needs. So I just wanted to make sure we put that as part of the conversation too. And this is all rolls up to that EIP tracking.
Thanks, Kim. Ashley?
That's actually a perfect tee up to my comment, which is really right. With upper watershed management, you can delay or slow the amount of water coming into our stormwater treatment systems. So spending those resources on really improving forest health does pay dividends in terms of reducing the total cost of necessary stormwater treatment. Of course, there are first flash storms and, you know, big storm events that you really need that type of infrastructure. But what I want to follow up with you on, Shay, just it doesn't need to happen here. It's a lot of the new, there's been a lot of new technology really over the last 5 years that get at capturing the solids in stormwater runoff and capturing them, treating them, and doing some carbon capture work to help actually finance these projects. So I'd be happy to follow up, but there's like a couple of really interesting projects that have come out of CU Boulder and out of UC Merced to think about how to reduce the overall cost of those types of infrastructure investments.
Great, thank you, Ashley. I did want to just respond quickly to Stephanie, just that we did kick off last week the first step doing the pollutant load reduction modeling for the 2 priority watersheds in Placer County, Kings Beach, and Dollar Hill. So we're really at the start of that process to evaluate the existing infrastructure and see what level of treatment it gives us versus everyone doing parcel BMPs. That neighborhood is also constrained due to really slow soils, and a lot of the parcels are very tiny, making it challenging for them to implement parcel BMPs. But we, as part of that analysis, we look at all public parcels, whether it's Forest Service parcels, CTC parcels, or parcels owned by the county for opportunities. And again, as Ashley mentioned, where are there opportunities to infiltrate or treat higher up in the watershed so that not everything is all going down to the existing infrastructure that's part of your commercial corridor area.
Brooke? Do we go back? You mentioned 6 water retention basins that we have, at least here on the South Shore, of which I can think of 4 specifically. But the big one that you mentioned, which you called the Bijou Pump and Treat, have we gone back to look at, is it doing what we want? Because I know that there's a huge water retention basin near Walkup, and it's never wet. And the idea of that Bijou pumping station was that it was supposed to capture the water way down by CVS in vaults, and through various sifting operation, you get the water all the way, taking out all the sediment. And then it's supposed to be pumped back up to the retention basin that I just mentioned. But like I said, it's always dry. I mean, 2023, it was dry. That was a big winter. 2026, it's dry. So when we talk about, are they appropriately sized? Are we going back and looking at the ones we built and figuring out which ones are working and which ones maybe were oversized? I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that each of the local jurisdictions, if they're getting TMDL credit for those projects, which in this case, the city does for Bijou, they have specific protocol to evaluate those every year that they're getting credit for them. They have something called BMP RAM, Rapid Assessment Methodology, to make sure that whatever basin is infiltrating as it's intended. And if not, that affects how much credit that the local jurisdiction gets. And all of the maintenance interval information is provided to the state, and that goes into the crediting. I can't necessarily speak anecdotally of it being dry or wet. I definitely know that, in big events, the pumps do kick off and water gets delivered to those basins for sure. Maybe, it's not all the time because it's a smaller event, or just, slower runoff, or, melting of snow. But there is protocols in place to evaluate them. As far as sizing, we did look at, our design storm is the 20-year 1-hour storm. That's actually larger than most jurisdictions in North America. As was mentioned, we have the first flush. Most pollutants in stormwater is in, the initial pulse of water, and then anything after is more just flowing through. But we have a larger size because of rain on snow events, and we want to make sure that basins have the capacity to deal with those situations. And so in the 2012 regional plan, that was something that was looked at and was determined to be that our sizing was adequate. We didn't feel like we had to increase the size because there's a point of diminishing returns that even if you go larger, you're not necessarily providing additional treatment. So we stayed with that sizing, but it is bigger than most other places just because of our unique climate conditions here.
All right, other questions or comments? Julie, please.
It sounds like we might be wrapping. Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. Just to build on Shay's excellent answer, I also want to kind of go back to the introduction of what these systems are designed to do. We have a goal to get back, our threshold standard for water clarity is 97 feet. So we're trying to get back to about 100 feet of clarity, which you used to be able to see down into the lake in the 1960s. Back when we adopted that TMDL, the total maximum daily load, we set an interim target of trying to get to 80 feet. We call that the clarity challenge. And so we all collectively as a basin set a goal to reduce the amount of fine sediments, nitrogen, and phosphorus that would flow into the lake. And so these systems, every one of these, pieces of infrastructure are tracked by the local jurisdictions. They're measuring how much they're removing of this fine sediment, the nitrogen, and the phosphorus, and they in turn get these credits to meet their permit conditions or their agreements with the states. So it is a really complicated system, but at a big picture level, like each of these are being analyzed to say, how are we doing today? Because what we're finding in clarity work is that we are taking a lot of pollutants out of the lake, but things are changing with the lake. And that's where we're leaning in on the Tahoe Science Advisory Council to find out, as the lake is warming, as species are changing in the lake, are these systems designed correctly? And so that work is going on to make sure that we're sizing them correctly, that they're designed correctly. There's new technologies that are emerging. So I just wanted the board to know, like we're working with the partners on that. And then I also wanted to give a nice piece of updated information for Douglas County and a shout out to Douglas County. They are studying a stormwater assessment in Douglas County's jurisdiction. So their Board of County Commission voted to look at that. They're looking at potentially setting a new fee that would support stormwater infrastructure in the Douglas County portion in the basin as well as in the valley, because these things do come at a cost. And so that was groundbreaking in terms of a stormwater assessment, which is pretty common in a lot of other municipalities, but we've never had one like set up like that in the basin because our utility providers treat, they deliver water and treat wastewater. They're not treating stormwater as part of the utility systems. So again, kind of that history of how we've evolved, we have to go back and build these systems later, much later than other jurisdictions have, just because of the way Tahoe developed in the history. So just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Julie. I had one just final comment responding a little bit to Ashley and the work that's done at the EIP working group SQUIC. There has been discussion with all the jurisdictions about the importance of having more of a treatment train to pull out coarse material because that facilitates maintenance. Our pollutant of concern is really ultra-fine sediment. And so we want to make sure that infiltration basins do their job to pull out that really fine sediment. And so one research project that the Tahoe Resource Conservation District is working on is a study evaluating the effectiveness of adding biochar to basins to help maintain infiltration, pull out other fine sediment and pollutants. So that's something that's going underway in the Bourne Meadow, which is in Douglas County, where they have two basins that they're going to be able to look at side by side, one with biochar and one without, to really evaluate that effectiveness. So those are some innovations to try to adaptively manage as we move forward and really, put the treatment to the highest level for our infrastructure.
Yep. So we can definitely follow up, but what I would say is also American Forest Foundation is working in Tuolumne County on an application to actually do some forest clearing for wildfire resilience treatment. then turn the residue into biochar that they churn back into the soil, and basically produce a whole bunch of ecosystem services, wildfire risk reduction, and insurability for the community. So I can connect you, but it would be great to just think about a broader project like that that connects all of this. And Blue Forest is doing some of the water, the downstream water benefit quantification on that.
And I'll add one comment, Chair, to that. Yeah, just to put a plug in for the Placer County effort on biomass outside the basin, but at our Cabin Creek facility, we are working on establishing a biomass plant there, which will produce biochar locally as well. So I think, yeah, a lot of synergy.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shay. Thanks, everyone. Since this was informational only, we will move on then to the next agenda item, which is 8B. This is demonstration of new permitting tools. Information can be found on page 139, and I can turn it back to staff, please. I believe Jen Self is presenting.
Yes, Jen Self, please welcome. This is Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. We have Mason Bindle as well. While they're getting set up, I'll just do a brief introduction. We're giving you an update on an ongoing project that's part of our improvements to permit processing. You've heard many presentations over the years. We've evaluated our fees, for example, to make sure that we're striving toward our goal of cost recovery. This is the next evolution, and Jen Self has been a leader in this work, supported by our science and data team, Mason, and many other staff members here at the agency. One of the things we wanted to talk to you today about is our pilot and looking at the use of artificial intelligence in our permitting to help us be more efficient and effective, attain and maintain our thresholds, and improve our overall public service. It's a big conversation that we're having internally as an agency. I'm sure all of the circles that you operate in with your constituencies also have these conversations about environmental concerns about the use of artificial intelligence. And so we've been engaging through our learning lab. We have every month with our staff conversations around what's appropriate for us, developing new policies for our staff. But the truth is, people already outside of TRPA are using AI on our permit processing. They are already using that to develop new checklists. So we need to make sure that accuracy reigns, because anyone who has Googled and gone into AI knows there's a lot of misinformation and inaccurate information out there. So part of what we're doing is making sure that we're training AI to be correct. I want to also mention a lot of conversation around using AI to replace staff. Like, we've been very clear at TRPA, we're not bringing in artificial intelligence to reduce the size of our workforce, because what we do requires human action. Nothing is simple and straightforward in the world that we live in Lake Tahoe, and we rely on the technical expertise of our staff, which is immense. And so I wanted to put that out on the record. Anything that we use in terms of artificial intelligence will require human oversight, and we're committed to that. And then when we do use AI in piloting some of the work that you'll hear from our staff, we're limiting it to the use of our plan and code and not the entire internet. So trying to be specific on the scope, we believe also limits the amount of resources that are used in the process. So with that, I'm going to give you the next step in the process, and I'll give it to Jen Self to take it away. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Julie. And members of the board, thank you for having us today. So as Julie mentioned, we're going to give you a sneak peek at some of the tools that we are developing at TRPA to help with our permitting process. These are not live, these are under development. And so we'll kind of walk you through what those are and why they're important. For the record, we can go to the next slide. Sorry, I have the slideshow on my presentation. I'm Jen Self, Principal Planner with TRPA. I'm joined by Mason. He's part of our data and science team, and we're so grateful to have him. We can go to the next slide. So the topic of today's presentation, or this agenda item, is permitting. So our permitting and compliance here at TRPA is our largest department. We have 22 staff members. We review, permit, and inspect private projects all throughout the Lake Tahoe region. On average, our team processes about 1,200 permitting applications, 1,500 tree removal applications, but we also serve to advise and support 3 other jurisdictions that are issuing TRPA permits on our behalf under the MOU delegation. So why is permitting so important? Permitting is really one of our key mechanisms to help us achieve and maintain environmental thresholds. So every single regulation within our code of ordinances links directly back to an environmental standard that we have. So an efficient and predictable permitting process is a win-win for the lake. Projects built by private investors and developers that are in compliance with our code help us to achieve those environmental gains that we're going after through green infrastructure, stormwater systems. You just received a presentation regarding stormwater systems, scenic and alternative transportation improvements, as well as protection and restoration of sensitive land. So our objective, whenever we're looking at our permitting system and seeing how can we improve this, the objectives are really multi-pronged. So yes, a big component is providing better customer service, but also ensuring that we're getting more complete and compliant project proposals in the door, and that we're learning really insightful information from the outputs of the process as well. So how exactly is private development helping us achieve those gains? And where are potential bottlenecks in this process? We can go to the next slide. And permitting in Tahoe is very complex and complicated. Conceptually, when it comes to TRPA regulations, folks tend to have a general understanding of what we're after. So protect the lake, install stormwater systems to protect from runoff, limit the footprint of development on the land, and restore sensitive areas. Those big concepts are easy to grasp, especially people that care about the lake. It's all the nuances and layers to our regulation beneath those concepts that can be so confusing. And it leads to the, well, it depends when we're answering questions and what can be done on a property. So for example, a homeowner wants to build an addition or ADU. Like all places, we have the zoning, we have design guidelines, height, setbacks, things like that. But here in Tahoe, say with coverage, for example, they would need to know, well, is it IPES or is it Bailey's? And what's been verified in the past is potentially grandfathered versus what is considered new. Am I eligible for any exemptions? What's the criteria for exemptions? What about relocating or transferring coverage? What about mitigation fees? Does this project pencil out? Do I go to TRPA for a permit or at the local jurisdiction? What is TRPA? You know, the list goes on and on. So you can see that when you start adding to the layers, it gets really complicated. And so our permitting system really requires knowing those unique terms and really the ins and outs of the consideration and implications. Next slide. So that's where we come in and where this project comes in. A huge part of our job, and I think anyone at TRPA, is education. We take a lot of pride in trying to provide excellent customer service to the public and to our partners. If someone has permitting questions, they may speak with Bridget over the phone, or they may come in for a virtual or in-person appointment with Allie or Trevor. And then Helen is our intake specialist that helps make sure folks understand what to submit with an application and if it's complete before it's assigned to a planner. And so the new tools, which we're going to demo today, there's 2 of them, is adding to this suite of options. So we're still keeping our staff, as Julie mentioned. Having human connection is really important to the entire agency. And so this is just adding to that toolbox. And as Julie mentioned, the tools that we're developing are powered by AI. So kind of think TurboTax for permitting, a guide that could walk you through what is possible, what do I need to consider when designing a project, how to submit an application. And if you get stuck along the way, we are still going to be here to help. Let's go to the next slide. AI is a very loaded concept. And it has it's all the buzz right now. There is generative AI, which you'll hear a lot talked about in the media, that may scour the entire internet, including someone's random blog post for an answer and kind of invent answers or make those up. That's not what we're talking about today with these tools. Our tools are anchored to the TRPA data. So it's a closed system. We're able to fence in what exactly these tools are looking at. So very similar to when staff is answering permitting question, we're pulling from concrete data sources, our code, our rules of procedures, design review guidelines, local area plans, spatial data that we have in GIS, what we know of the parcel's history. And so the same is for this AI model that we're going to be using. It's only querying specific and official resources that we tell it to look at. So in a nutshell, these tools are all about data integration. How do we line up those puzzle pieces, the nuances, the layers to provide faster answers in real time and essentially unlock that knowledge that is with our staff planners and in our code? We're doing this in partnership with Emulate Cities, and a big thank you to Vince H. He had heard of this company, Emulate Cities, through the San Francisco Bay Area Planning and Urban Research Association and introduced us. Emulate Cities is the company that specializes in AI tools specifically for permitting and for local governments. The co-founder, Saranjay Shah, has a master's from the London School of Economics and Political Science and has worked with the United Nations and Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in India. And Johannes is actually a theoretical physicist and has a PhD from the University College in London in AI. These are a really fantastic set of individuals to work with, and we're grateful to have their knowledge. Let's go to the next slide. So going back to the TRPA application journey, what is the likely process that someone would walk through to get a project on the ground, whether it's a deck addition or say an affordable 100-unit housing complex? There's a pre-application and proposal submittal phase. There's the actual review of that proposal and then application and issuing a permit. There's the constructions and inspections, and then monitoring and reporting after the fact. So our permitting improvement project as an umbrella aims to touch each one of these stages or steps of the process. However, we're starting kind of at the beginning. We're starting with the pre-application assistant tool that we're going to demo and an application submittal tool. And the reason that we're starting there is, yes, it's at the beginning of the process, but it's also where we're seeing the greatest bottlenecks of the process. So helping folks just understand all the it depends questions and where do I start is a huge bottleneck right now. And we're seeing roughly, just an example, around 70% of our residential applications are going incomplete at some point in the process and missing information that we need just to get a permit out the door and issue that. So these first tools that we're focusing on right now are trying to alleviate some of that burden or bottleneck. So now I'm going to turn it over. We're going to do an actual demo. I have a video and fingers crossed. Let's see if this works. So this is a pre-application tool that's going to help someone figure out, do I even need to come to TRPA to get a permit and what's needed. You need to have a dog if you live in Tahoe.
Not this one though, she's mine.
There we go. Thank you so much. So this is a mock-up or a prototype where someone can enter in an address, and then the tool is going to start pulling from all of our resources that we have online today. So for example, the parcel tracker is going to be pulling from our spatial GIS layer. They're walking through and answering, okay, I want to try to build a fence on my property. What do I need to know and what do I need to be thinking about? And do I need a permit or is this exempt? So this tool is pulling in some of that data as if you had a staff planner on the phone with you, answering some of those key questions. And it's going to end with, okay, yes, you need a permit, or no, you don't need to come to TRPA at all. Make sure to check with your local building department and proceed. So that is the first tool that we're building right now. And then the second tool is in a prototype. It's once someone has figured out, okay, yes, I need a TRPA permit. What do I submit? And this is a prototype that our consultants have actually built with Tulare County down south, and that we also have a mock-up for our own. It's, again, walking someone through the permitting process. They're able to upload site plans, and then this AI tool is actually reading the TRPA application checklist and verifying, do these site plans actually have everything that we need? Does it have a grading plan? Does it have a BMP plan? and providing them real-time information about what may be missing with their application submittal. So the current process today, someone has the application that they receive online. We give folks a lot of breadcrumbs and resources online, but they're static PDFs. There's a lot of learning and understanding that's needed. They submit their application hoping that it's complete. But a lot of times there's back and forth with our intake staff. Oh, we're missing this component. Oh, we need, a different coverage table. And so there's a lot of back and forth. This is giving real-time feedback on what may be needed to make sure that you have a complete application before you hit submit. Thank you so much for making those videos work, and we can head back to the presentation. We can go to the next slide. I was asking for too much. I broke the presentation. Well, I'll go ahead and continue talking. One really important piece that we're trying to emphasize in this presentation, and Julie mentioned it in her opening remarks, is that the human reviewer, TRPA staff, myself included, remains the final authority on whether or not a project is approvable or not, and even if an application can move on to a staff reviewer. So what these tools are doing is simply just trying to help us streamline the process and ensure that things are more complete when they hit a staff member's desk, so we can get those permits out the door much quicker. And so the two tools that we demoed here today, so the pre-application, do I need a permit at all? Do I need to come talk to you? What I need to consider? And then the application submittal tool. Those are under development right now. The next stage would be to start testing, to start talking with our MOU partners and having them test it and go through a lot of iterations and making sure that these are usable tools for staff and for the public. So potentially having the pre-application tool online and live later this year. But as I mentioned before, this is kind of the tip of the iceberg for this project. We do want to hit on each phase of the application journey and see where we can make improvements, see where we can implement some tools that provide for some better understanding. And we're learning from other places. So the consultants that we're working with emulate cities. They're also working with a few other jurisdictions around the country. They're working with Norwalk, Connecticut on a design review assistant. So at really kind of at that application review phase. They're working with Jackson, Wyoming on a chatbot that helps contractors and the public better understand the code, something that we may be able to implement an iteration of in our tools. And they're working with a town in Idaho on a affordable housing feasibility study. So we're working together with all these different pieces and learning from each other. And as Julie mentioned, we're also having a lot of internal dialogue about AI and this concept and just deeper conversations. What is the data fence that we want our AI model to look at? We don't want it scouring the internet for anything and everything. We want to have some really tight parameters on what it's doing. Also disclaimers and transparency for the public and the staff when AI is being used. So that is the end of the presentation for today. This is just an informational item, so no action needed, but I'm looking forward to it and I welcome any questions and conversation from the board.
Thank you. I see Shelley right away, and then I see Vince G, and then I'll go around the horn. Go ahead, Shelley.
Good presentation. Thank you. And I'm pleased there's going to be some beta testing before it's launched. So I guess the question, Jen, is whether or not using the AI assistant is going to be optional or required before interacting with staff. Is there an option? There are a lot of people who are uncomfortable using AI. And for legitimate reasons. I think everyone around this table has tried to get to a banking representative, and getting past that firewall is almost impossible. I just give up, get in my car and go to the bank and hope that. So I just want to make sure that that is an option. If people are not comfortable using the AI assistant, that they still have access to staff.
Yes, that's been a huge part of the conversation in building these new tools. Always having the, I want to exit and I want to actually just speak with a person option. That's always going to remain in place. And that's been really important to us. Always having the option for someone to have face-to-face interaction with a permitting technician and planner. That's why I wanted to flash kind of the staff that is leading the charge in our customer service team. They're brilliant. Bridget, who handles all of our incoming phone calls, has over 30 years of experience. So they're really getting knowledgeable staff to help answer those daily questions on the fly. We also have set up virtual and in-person appointments. So everyone has those options. If you'd rather just come talk with a person, that's an option. And we want to make sure that we keep that as an option as well.
Super. Thank you.
Vince G.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the presentation. Board member Aldine actually stole my question, so I'll leave it at that. But so I appreciate that. I think maybe just a comment then that I really appreciate. I think I know there's a huge move to AI. I think anytime that you can continue with the lens that it looks like you have been doing, which is that it's an enhancement to existing procedures, I think is great, and keeping that human touch is excellent. So thank you for the presentation. And I don't have a question since it was answered. Thank you.
Ashley.
I guess one thing I just want us to be aware of is that the cost of using an AI tool, both the cost of actually creating this, deploying it, and operating it from a fiscal standpoint and an ecosystem services standpoint, and the natural resources demand of operating AI. So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to put a small fee on the use of the pre-application checklist, like a $25 to $50 fee that allows people to go through the process a little bit faster, right? If when this is developed, they go through the process faster, and then that fee goes into the EIP to potentially do watershed improvements that offset the water demand and the energy demand for running an AI-based tool. And I do think that's something we really need to think about because it's a huge issue. Additionally, if it's not AI-based and it's a software-based tool that's just embedded within our systems and isn't crawling larger areas, you can actually really reduce that demand. And so I just really want to think about that as you go through the development, because we could be making things worse in allowing like rampant AI use. And I fully agree that there should be a faster way of getting to permitting, and there should be something much more streamlined. It's just a matter of how we do it. I know there's a lot of people trying to create AI data centers run on solar or renewables, but that's not happening fast enough. So I just want to flag that we don't want to undercut the good work we're doing in our EIP program by deploying a tool that demands more water and energy than is necessary.
Thank you so much for that comment. And we've been having a lot of internal dialogue. We are an environmental agency, and so making sure that any action that we're taking as an environmental agency is ethical and responsible. And I don't know, did you want to speak at all to some of that environmental?
You make a lot of good points. Mason Bindle, TRPA staff, for the record. I work on the science and data team, and AI is a loaded term, and a lot of this is just a query. And the opportunity we've had with this process improvement project is for Jen and I to work explicitly together to find where the data integrations need to happen. And a lot of this software will just be software that lives in our server room. And when the novel piece of technology, machine learning, reads a site plan, we could think about what that actually costs environmentally.
Okay, yeah. If the focus is more on the application of a software, that actually reduces a lot of my concerns. That's great.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo the comments from Ash. I think that's, great point, something to be mindful of. And I just appreciate you framing this as a win-win. Like, we've been having a lot of conversations, at least in California, about permitting and streamlining. And sometimes the proposed answer is like, oh, we should just get rid of environmental laws altogether, and then we can just be a lot faster. And I appreciate, keeping them in place, but finding more efficient and, kind of ways to make it sure it's going faster and it's an easier experience for everyone involved. But yeah, definitely feel like this is a great way of framing it as a win-win.
Julie.
Madam Chair, Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. Great conversation. This is exactly what we were hoping to hear from all of you. Your suggestions we're building this out. I did want to echo Jen's point of that we're on a continuum here. And a quick anecdote, I did, for those of you who are in the basin and you know KRLT, Howie's Morning Rush show, I did the radio show last Friday, and you never know who's going to call in and get kind of whatever question may come up, but we actually had feedback like, I just want to thank TRPA for working on your permitting over the years. I used to have a really hard time, and I've had, great customer service, excellent help navigating a complicated permitting system. And so we got positive feedback, like unsolicited on the radio. So, take the win when you get it, right? But it's very much due to the staff that we have and the drive for continuous improvement. When I started here more than 20 years ago, that was probably one of the top concerns that we heard from the community. The permitting's too convoluted. We're in a ping pong between the local jurisdictions and TRPA. The 2012 regional plan was very much designed to improve that through area planning and streamlining procedures, the MOUs with the jurisdictions. And so I just want the board to see we are on a continuum of continually working to improve, embracing technology when we can, but doing it in a very thoughtful manner. We actually have been sending our staff to conferences around the use of AI in public space and government agencies. We're looking at best practices for internal policies about even just which ones to query when we're doing work, trying to solve work problems. So we're actually developing an in-house policy around the use of AI just for our staff. So wanted to add to that, but give a big compliment to our team who are working really hard to improve the service to the public, to make it simpler. Because we find when our project applicants understand the reason behind the rules to protect the lake, and we can make it simple for them and streamlined, we're going to get better compliance overall, and we're going to make progress on our thresholds.
Alexis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also am excited about this new tool. I'm curious on the back end for other jurisdictions or other folks who do permitting approvals. Are they able to access it, or do you send them a PDF of the full package and it's old school that way still?
For the actual application itself. So that is a conversation that we want to have with our MOU partners.
Okay.
And deciding what works.
Yeah.
I think in an ideal world, if there was a central, portal where someone could go and learn what's needed for a project. And then if it's a TRPA permit is needed or application, it's the same portal. And whether it's reviewed at Washoe County or it's reviewed at the city of South Lake Tahoe or it's reviewed with TRPA staff, it would go into our systems. These tools have that capability, but those are questions that we need to have with our MOU partners to see if it actually works with their processes, and then also working with our stakeholders and the public too, as we move along in this process.
Okay, thank you.
Rachel, and then I did see Cisco Secretary Aguilar. I saw you pop up, so I didn't know if you had a question or not, but let me get to Rachel and then I'll come back to you.
No question, just here. Thanks.
Okay.
So I just have a question on the back end. Are you pulling the permitting information and all of the other information from your own places is my first question, and from like all the NECs, California rules, regs, laws, to get that information for the AI, one, and then two, during the AI, when they're going and doing the permitting checks and stuff like that. I know that you guys are just putting it together now and getting into beta testing and UAT testing and stuff like that with your MOUs. But when they have questions and they can't answer them or anything like that, will the AI or bot come back and send an email to somebody in TRPA planning to reach out because something got stopped?
Sure. Mason Bindle, TRPA staff. I'll take the first question. The opportunity here has been to create data integrations and data services in traditionally siloed systems and expose that to this tool, but also connect those systems in meaningful ways. So it's going to help our MOU partners because those data services can be reused. Things like LT Info Parcel Tracker have been a system of record that we've been able to leverage. And so building that foundation of data is exactly what we've done. And any sort of CEQA, NEPA sort of data has been pulled into our enterprise systems and exposed to this tool. But again, like the way Jen said it, it's been fenced off. And those are the specific data sources and authoritative systems of record that the tool is looking at. And then your second question, yeah, the flag happens immediately. So it's really that immediate feedback of you might have to look at this further or talk to a planner. So the applicant sees that in real time. And the planner also sees that. And if the applicant gets halfway through a submittal and wants to speak to a person. So it's everybody has visibility into the results of how the pre-application went. But if you wanted to like email that to somebody, we could think about that. Is that?
Sorry, or having a planner contact the person back. I just think customer service wise, it would be so great if it's not the AI tool. We're not looking at the AI tool being the one and only thing that they're utilizing, but it's letting us know to get back to the person also.
I think that's a great suggestion, and we're building this prototype, but I think suggestions like that, and that's a really good one to note. Hopefully those will come through the beta testing. Okay, this happens, you're at this stage, what would you like to see happen? And actually having some of our stakeholders and the members of the public give us their feedback.
Okay. No other questions or comments. Thanks, you guys. That was really interesting. And this was informational only. So we're going to close that agenda item and move on to our next agenda item, which is executive reports. Director Reagan, General Counsel St. Michel, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a few items to share with you. Again, happy Earth Day. We don't always have the board meeting on the actual day of Earth Day, which was in 1970, April 22nd. So super excited about that. Our team has been out in celebrations. The South Shore had its Earth Day festivities last Saturday. And so these are some pictures of us out with the community. It was a beautiful day. Didn't snow. Hopefully the North Shores this weekend will be the same. We get the snow out of the way today and earlier in the week. So our team will be out on the North Shore this coming weekend. But just a great opportunity for us to celebrate all that we do in service to the lake and our mission and our communities. And so just wanted to acknowledge that. And again, think back in time when President Nixon actually signed the compact, December of 1969, the first TRPA convening of the board was in Carson City in March of 1970. So right at the beginning of this Earth Day movement. I do want to, before we move on, do a quick acknowledgement for National Administrative Professionals Day. And I would like the board to, I'd like to lead us in a round of applause for all of our admin professionals. 3 of which are sitting at the table right there, making this very meeting happen through audio hiccups and microphone malfunctions. Thank you for all that you do, and all the other administrative professionals that are in the building and supporting us. None of us can do what we do without them. So thank you for everything and for all of your hard work. I also will note that you move forward in the consent calendar, the solar project, another solar project in the city of South Lake Tahoe. And it was just a couple of years ago that you approved the largest solar project in the basin at the South Tahoe Public Utility District plant. And in a couple of weeks, we have a big event to recognize the completion of that. So we're making progress on a lot of important projects here in the basin. Okay, I'll take the next slide, please. And so we're going to go to something else that happened last Saturday, and I'm hoping that board member Bass is on the call remotely at the moment, because this is Mayor Bass here pictured at the city of South Lake Tahoe last Saturday at the grand opening of the Recreation and Aquatic Center, affectionately known in town as the Rec Center. And many of you were here. And I just wanted to make note of this incredible facility. This is a 65,000 square foot recreation complex that has everything from an indoor batting cage to lap swimming, a lazy river for kids, all kinds of workout equipment, a gym, a massive gymnasium where multiple basketball courts, basketball games are going to be going on at the same time. And it was actually, many of us were actually moved to tears because it was so incredible to see our community so happy. It was packed. I want to say maybe 750, almost 1,000 people from our community came out on Saturday, which to get anybody to show up in Tahoe when there's not a massive complaint is a rare occasion, and people were joyous and happy to see this investment in the future. I want to acknowledge Mayor Bass and our city partners for their hard work. Former city manager Joe Irvin, who has moved on to a new position down in Malibu, was up because it was a lot of hard work of our city partners to make this happen. There were measures that the community voted on to increase hotel tax, TOT tax, sales tax that allowed the city then to bond. And we're talking about $80 million. So where in a community the size of less than 30,000 people on the South Shore would you have a facility like this? It shows that you can harness the power of tourism for good to have our communities benefit from that investment. So it was incredible. It's accessible to people with disabilities and to kids with disabilities. There's memberships for residents and non-residents. So you might want to look into it. If you're here after a long board meeting, you might want to swing by, get a workout in. They have a punch card, 10 or 12 bucks a workout. You can just get on your way out of town to swing by. Many of you, I'm thinking of Ashley and Vince H. And other members have been on tours, Ben Kiekeffer, when it was under construction, but to see the finish is really quite something. And so maybe I'll just pause to see if Board Member Bass is on the line, if Cody wanted to say anything, because your speech was quite moving at the beginning, Cody, and I'd love to give you a moment if you're there. Is he still on? No, fine. Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to keep going, but at board member reports, feel free to jump in because it was incredible. Okay, we will go to the next slide. Just a couple of updates here. The interim oversight committee for TRPA and the Nevada legislature. That's a picture from a tour that we took with the interim committee just on April 10th. Again, it was kind of snowing in the morning. The sun came out. We had this incredible tour starting in Incline Village, went along the Highway 28 corridor to Sand Harbor, heard about the master plan for Sand Harbor State Park, and to look at something that they're doing that's very innovative in the basin, a reservation system that other facilities are learning from in real time to better manage the demand of one of the most spectacular natural assets around Lake Tahoe and in the world. And so we appreciate all of the partners that joined us for that to come out and talk about transportation, sustainable recreation, and destination stewardship. And we have 3 more meetings of that interim committee coming up, and 2 more will be right here at TRPA. And the 6th meeting will be in Carson City in August. And that's a work session where bill drafts will be considered by that committee. 8 members of the legislature serve on that committee, chaired by Heather Golding from Northern Nevada in the Reno area. And then on the right-hand side, we're very busy in the Sacramento capital as well. Golden mussels, which you've heard about in your briefings. The EIP committee has an item on aquatic invasive species. The golden mussel issue is very big in the session right now, and board member Loomer can probably elaborate on this as well in her report. But this is a picture of the California Assembly Water Parks and Wildlife Committee. There have been multiple bills introduced, and even tomorrow, Devin Middlebrook, our government affairs manager, will be testifying down in the legislature because Tahoe is known for its good prevention work and control of invasive species, and we're very honored, to be thought of as a model for the state and how we deal with that, and as a resource as the state is grappling with some pretty rapid expansion of golden mussels in our waterways in the state of California, and we need to keep them out of Lake Tahoe because we don't have them yet. Okay, I'll take the next slide. And then around your places at the dais is our latest issue of Tahoe in Depth, which just came back from the printer yesterday, and just a reminder that we do direct mail to every homeowner in the basin a copy of the paper, almost 40,000 copies, and then another 5,000 or 10,000 copies goes all around the basin, in the basin as well as out of the basin in surrounding areas. So please take a look. We've got updates on our national of our standards on the forest with the forest health standards for threshold updates, as well as updates in transportation, the golden mussel, reminders to clean your gear. Non-motorized paddlecraft can spread golden mussels, and that's a big message. We could use your help in getting out there. People are pretty familiar with powerboats and motorboats being a vector for quagga mussels, which we also don't have. But the concept that a kayak, a stand-up paddleboard, an inner tube could be what's called the vector, could carry in the golden mussel, is a pretty new concept for a lot of our visitors. And of course, you have to launch a boat in a certain manner at a boat ramp. You can launch a kayak, a paddleboard anywhere. So we're really working hard to get the message that you need to clean your gear. And we have these stations around the lake to do hosing off the gear. And we're going to talk about that in the EIP committee. And I do want to thank board member Comrade Seda for chairing the EIP committee after this meeting. Appreciate your help in doing that. Okay, just a couple more slides and I'll turn it over to our general counsel. Again, y'all got to meet our new Vint G on the board. Thank you for being here and for jumping in with both feet onto your committees and serving with the board. We also have some staffing updates here at the agency, and I sent a note to all of you that we have officially put out the job announcement for the new Deputy Director Chief Planning Officer. As John Hester will be retiring, he is on vacation. He is back in Boston visiting his son right now. But the reality has set in that he is leaving in September, and we are putting out the announcement that we're replacing that position. So please feel free to share that job description that I emailed to you. It's on all of our channels. It's on our website. But we're hoping to cast the net far and wide to recruit for a new Deputy Director, Chief Planning Officer. Hester is irreplaceable. We all know that, but we will embrace the new person with open arms when the time is right. We also have a couple of folks leaving. As I mentioned, one of our inspectors is going to graduate school back in Chicago at Northwestern. So we're recruiting for that. We have a new assistant planner position that we're recruiting for. Tiffany Good has left the agency and we're reorganizing. And I will say, I think we got almost 100 applications for the assistant planner. Like we've never had 95 applications for a job at TRPA in the planning department before. So people do want to work here. It's a wonderful sign. And of course, maybe the job market is tight as well, but we appreciate the interest. And then just to go back to the last presentation, we have invested in a public service specialist position. Over the years, TRPA has eliminated that position from time to time. And I made a commitment when I took over 3.5 years ago to always have this position to make sure there is someone to answer the phone, get a planner, make appointments, help people who don't know how to use a computer to do a tree removal permit. A tree removal permit is the easiest permit action that we probably take. And we have a lot of seniors that they don't know how to navigate it. And so we have committed to replacing the public service specialist position. And so we're actively recruiting for that as well. And we're onboarding 6 new interns for the summer. We have a great track record of interns actually working in careers at TRPA. It's a pipeline for our professionals here. And we're excited that I think we've hired, 5 out of 6 in different departments. So looking forward to that. And I believe that might be, last but not least, of course, Faney Bridge. Some of us had the chance in December before the bridge was open to go up and take a picture. I wanted to wait for board member Gustafson to be back to show the other one of the Fannies over the bridge. We had a special one that we posed for, ergo the name of the bridge, but really incredible project that again is a long arc of this board's engagement with revitalization in the Tahoe City area, right at the dam, which is more than 100 years old. The bridge is 100 years old. There's new roundabouts. There's another access point to get in and out of the West Shore, which is incredible for fire evacuation. And now that bridge has been replaced and was done so in a manner to be historically appropriate. So a lot of work went into that, but big shout out to Placer County, which has been a driver of that. It's been a very complicated project with a lot of federal money. And we appreciate those federal dollars, but getting those dollars in from the US DOT through Denver is sometimes a complicated process, and Placer County was stalwart in making sure that that project finished. And it was in multiple phases. So really kudos to the North Shore of a great opportunity to have an actual river district right at the one outlet of Lake Tahoe into the Truckee River. Okay, I think that's about it. Most of these I've mentioned in past reports, but one more plug for the Best in the Basin. More than 30 years we've been recognizing projects, so please push the announcement out. We're doing radio, public service announcements, letting folks know that we're taking nominations for another week. So please get the word out in your constituencies to submit applications for review for Best in Basin for great projects. And I did want to mention the EIP committee is going to be vetting the new Myers Watercraft Inspection Station project. And there's an open house in Myers that Board Member Lane, I'm sure, will be attending coming up. But it's an opportunity to use state land. The Tahoe Conservancy has several parcels in Myers as you come in right near the roundabout on Highway 50 to have a permanent inspection station, just as we're building up on Spooner Summit on the Nevada side, and potentially to co-locate affordable housing with that project. So pretty exciting. You're going to hear from our reporting and accountability department next month. Please mark your calendars for our regular meeting on Wednesday of May 27th, and then the day after our retreat, which will be at Grand Lebacan, both meetings on the North Shore. And we'll be getting together with you after the meeting for dinner, and then we'll be having the retreat on the Thursday. And then our next Legislative Oversight Committee meeting for Nevada is that Friday. So it'll be a big week following the Memorial Day holiday. And with that, I will turn it back to you.
Thanks, Julie. And I know Maria has been doing an awesome job organizing that retreat, but if you haven't answered her, please do. Thank you. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Graham St. Michel, General Counsel. I usually have been using these little reports to update on our active cases, and I think for our new board member Guthrie, I'll give the update again here. Just kind of go through it. Some of you all are already familiar because I've been reporting, and litigation is slow, so hopefully I'll probably stop that or draw back from that in the future. But we do have 4 active cases. I'll go through them. They're in order of when they were filed. The oldest is our Eisenstecken versus TRPA case, which involves a challenge to a TRPA approval of a cell tower. Some exciting development, I think, on this one came out of the legal committee this morning. We've been working for over half a year now to pursue settlement options, and out of the legal committee, we got some direction this morning to enter into a conditional settlement agreement, and that will involve advancing through a public process an ordinance to have new standards for stealthing of these monopine facilities. So the facilities that use the plastic monopine, the plastic needles, we're going to move forward with bringing a draft ordinance through our advisory planning commission, and then that will happen in May, and then the governing board will come back to you in June if everything goes well. So we look forward to that, and hopefully that will kind of bring an end to this long-running litigation. I think it was filed in 2020. And then the next case that we have is TRPA more of an enforcement position. This is a case we brought against as the plaintiff against these operators of unpermitted boat rentals. So they're a boat rental concession that is operating without a permit, and they don't operate. Our code requires commercial boat rentals to operate out of marinas, and these guys just kind of go around to different beaches picking people up. It's not allowed, and we've been working for a long time to bring enforcement action against them, and they're the subject of contempt order already. Like they've basically been non-compliant. We have a judgment outstanding against them. We're gearing up for another boating season coming up, and so the court has just required a lot of documentation, a lot of effort on our part to bring this forward, but we're moving forward with that and continue to do so as we come up to the next boating season. So I think our team is really positioning well to get more results coming up this year. And then another case that we have a little bit more recent was an individual. He sued TRPA because we denied him a buoy permit in in our world, it's very difficult to get a buoy permit associated with a non-littoral parcel. And this man has a parcel that is a non-littoral parcel, and he did not get his permit. We took it through the governing board process, which the board upheld the staff decision to deny the appeal, did not deny his permit. And he's seeking judicial review of that. He's filing a summary judgment motion, we think mid-May, and then we will be filing our own summary judgment motion and hope to have the case fully briefed by the end of summer. Yeah, so that one's an interesting one. For the board's awareness, we have a pending appeal of a very similar matter. So it might come back, not this individual, but another non-littoral parcel owner who wants a buoy permit. And so you might see that coming up this summer. And then the last case is very recent, and this was an individual, Douglas Flaherty. He's regular commenter, participant at these meetings, very concerned citizen, and he's in Incline Village area. He brought a lawsuit against TRPA for its approval of Washoe County's area plan amendments that were meant to conform to TRPA's regional plan. So they're all housing related amendments, and Mr. Flaherty is alleging that the agency didn't do proper environmental review as part of that approval. And so that case, it's still very new, and our team is working on preparing the administrative record, and we'll be in front of the court this month to basically come up with a scheduling order. And that one will probably be a while, but later this year before we have it, probably the end of the year, if everything goes well, to have that briefed. So if anyone ever has any questions on our pending litigation or pending cases, you can always reach out. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. Anyone have questions or comments on any of our executive updates? Okay, not seeing any online either. Thanks, guys. Next up, we have governing board member reports. Agenda item 11. Any governing members have anything to report? Alex.
And just quickly update on the California legislative session. So this Friday is the last day for policy committees to meet, which is really tomorrow because no one's there on Fridays. But I think we'll have a good sense of what bills are going to be moving forward to the Appropriations Committee, which will hear all bills on the suspense file on May 14th. And that's right around the time that we should be getting the May revise as well from the governor. So based on tax returns, we have a better sense of the fiscal climate in California. And so he will revise his budget and reissue it in May. And that kind of starts budget negotiations with the legislature in more earnest because they need to get a finalized budget by the end of June. So that's where we're at. Number of interesting bills moving. I think I've mentioned them before, but around environmental review and beneficial fire and permitting reform. So should be an interesting year.
For sure. Thank you, Alex. Anybody else? Ashley.
Just a note that I am not going to be able to make it to the retreat next month or the board meeting, and I'm really sorry to miss you all for that. And I just wanted to think about like some key items that I would typically bring up at the retreat, meaning just like really emphasizing our focus on using science and science-based information before we move action, our collaboration across multiple programs. So we really reflected the idea that we are living and working in a watershed. And just, yeah, I'm sorry to miss it, and I hope it goes well.
Which I got to do a little plug here, self-brag. Tell us why.
Oh, my 12-year-old son won the regional spelling bee, and so he's representing Sacramento at the National Script Spelling Bee in DC for the week, which is really exciting.
So cool. Renata, it's a friend brag. It's very cool. Very cool, Ashley. And thanks for that. And we can always talk offline too. Thank you for putting that in. Anybody else? Governing board, Brooke. Yeah. And Stephanie. Brooke and then Stephanie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to congratulate the City of South Lake Tahoe for the $82 million Rec and Aquatic Center. Super exciting. I also wanted to just mention to the board that the Emerald Bay Pilot Project is slated to begin again in 2026, starting Memorial Day to Labor Day. So we're working furiously on trying to get that organized.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And Stephanie,
Yeah, thank you. Just for your board's awareness, just an item out of the basin, but I think has been discussed here at TRPA as well. The Village at Palisades Tahoe specific plan in Olympic Valley did go to the Planning Commission on April 16th, and they voted unanimously to recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors. The board will be in Tahoe on May 12th, and we'll take up that item for reconsideration. If you recall, there was an approval in 2024, subsequent lawsuits that the applicant has been working through on that project and have proposed a revision to the project, which the board will hear in a couple of weeks. So we're excited about that. And I think a lot of progress made there from the applicant's perspective and general community support at the Planning Commission. So
Thanks, Stephanie. Anybody else? Yeah, Alexis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For TTD, just a quick update on the old elementary school. We had a meeting last month or this month, and we discussed what we're going to do with that property as a board. And the Reno Housing Authority will be submitting a letter to FTA along with a letter from Washoe County of support and working with TTD on making that site a workforce housing project. So it's going to take a bit of time to get a federal approval, and what that will look like, we're not quite sure. So we'll be keeping you posted, but I just think it's a great example of when you have the political will to ensure that a property is kept in government hands and that you can see good outcomes, even though it takes a bit of time to get there. And the community has been very supportive of workforce housing. And so I just am really thrilled that we potentially could get some housing units for our community. Reno Housing Authority will not be the master developer. They will go out to RFP. So it'll be a competitive bid process for people who want to do this project eventually. But it just feels like a lot of progress has been made on this site, and we may actually see some workforce housing in North Shore and Incline Village. And it just feels like a long time coming, decades coming. So thank you, everyone.
Congrats, and thank you for that update. That's great. Anybody else? Yeah, Vince, G.
Thank you. I just want to note, it's not really my update, but it's Board Member Hill's birthday today. So I want to wish you a happy birthday.
That's awesome. Thank you, everyone. And Vince H, hear me out. I'm just considering you're one letter short of like Vince Vice, right? We're just an extra N. So we could be like Vince and Vice Vince. Food for thought. All right. Next up is committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Nope. Okay. All right. That brings us to our final agenda item. This is our final period of public comment, our general public comment interest period, and any item listed or not listed on the agenda, including items on the consent calendar. We will limit public comments to 3 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone in the room wishing to make comment? It doesn't look like it. So let's go online. You can either dial *9 on your phone or click the raise hand button on Zoom. Is anyone wishing to address the governing board online?
Madam Chair, there are no hands raised to comment.
Okay, with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. It's 11:15 exactly. Julie, what's your pleasure? Do you want?
We have lunch for the board, and then the EIP committee will start no earlier than maybe, what do you think? 11:45? Is that good? 11:45.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks all.